The latest update to the WHO pandemic treaty may shock you as it could possibly hand over complete control of our rights to this international group of unelected leaders. Now, for anybody who's new here, you might be wondering, what the heck kind of treaty am I talking about? Check out this teaser that they released within the health crisis 2 years ago.
As you know, there have been several reviews of the global response to the pandemic with many recommendations for strengthening global health security. They all recognize the need for better systems and tools, better financing, including for global public goods such as vaccines, better global governance, and a stronger, empowered, and sustainably financed WHO. To connect and underpin these ideas, I believe the time is right for an international treaty or other legally binding instrument to provide the framework for a more coherent and coordinated response to future epidemics and pandemics. Whatever new structures or mechanisms are established, they must promote equity and galvanize the engagement and ownership of all countries. They must be multi-sectoral, involving partners from across the One Health spectrum. They must be coherent with the international health regulations. They must be rooted in the constitutional mandate of WHO. And they must be accountable and transparent.
There's a lot to unravel there, but if you caught them, they're asking for a bunch of things here. Besides better governance, one that they're claiming they can do for everyone, they're saying that the WHO, the WHO, again, unelected leaders that have a lot of control already, that the WHO, the WHO, has to be sustainably financed, meaning, hey, give us your money. So that's one red flag right there. Besides the terms international treaty and legally binding instruments to kind of really drive the point home that they're not asking for our permission to get this thing underway. Because remember, guys, that years ago, the fear was high. The anxiety was out of this world and people were just kind of like scared out of their minds with this entire pandemic. But years later, and wouldn't you know it, people are starting to wake up. Now, before we even get any further, I just want to ask, would you be comfortable handing over all of our rights to leaders that none of us even elected, that none of us chose? Comment a quick yes or no on that one. And while you guys are at it, smash the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications because I'm pretty sure already that this content is probably going to get downvoted for some mysterious reason. Glad I have you guys to help me out. Totally appreciate it. So now, a couple of months ago, a former Congresswoman, Michelle Bachmann, rang the alarm on this thing. So she's warning that our government, this current administration, it's a bit too, I don't know, how do I call it, at ease with this entire deal with the WHO. It's like they want it to happen with as little opposition as possible.
I don't think all the nations fully understand what these implications are. So we have very little time.
And top backers of this United Nations move do say speed is of the essence.
And I wish to stress, from our perspective, the quicker we can come together, the sooner we will all be safe. We know that the challenges we face won't be solved by a few leaders or a few countries, but by the world coming together and fighting for what's right.
Some in Congress oppose this move to further empower the WHO. They've proposed legislation that would deem it a treaty. A treaty would require Senate approval. Bachmann, however, claims the White House is trying an end run around these lawmakers.
The Biden administration doesn't plan to bring this treaty back to the U.S. Senate because they're using a subterfuge. They're calling it not a treaty, they're calling it an accord. And they're saying this isn't a treaty, this is just an accord, we can do this, we don't need the involvement of the U.S. government. But once you give government and power away, it's very hard to get it back.
Now, I want you guys to remember that the WHO gave recommendations during the health crisis, and well, it was also during the same time that they kind of came up with this amazing idea to come up with a treaty which would hand over a lot of power to them, and not to mention a lot of resources. It's right here in the fine print, guys. Do you see that? The parties refer to states, and as you can read, these parties have to cooperate and give available means and resources, which includes, but is not limited to, financial assistance. So I guess our tax dollars are going to be used for the WHO soon, huh? And just this October, it's been announced that this progress is being made to more than 300 proposed amendments from the WHO WHO to the IHR, or the International Health Regulations amendments, that could possibly give these people the power to call for an emergency that would be deemed of international concern, which then, of course, would have them dictating, not suggesting, but dictating. Okay, are you guys seeing this? Dictating what a country should or shouldn't do. This would apply to lockdowns, drugs that would be provided, restrictions for travel. I mean, the works, right? And of course, we need to talk about the surveillance aspect of this plan. I mean, right here in Article 18, you see the language, guys? Now they're going to combat false, misleading, misinformation, or disinformation. I'd like to note that during the health crisis, a lot of that misinformation stuff, well, that turned out to be true. Did you guys hear any apologies for that? Nope, I didn't hear one. Not a single one. And I mean, like, would the same apply here? Would they still push for jabs as well? Would they be required to tell us what's in them? Or should we just kind of like trust them to be responsible adults about it? And speaking of responsibility, let's not forget that the surveillance, that specific language, is still very much included in this updated paper. The wording is vague, but they're trying to zero in on the surveillance of viruses, although it isn't closed to just that. There's something called the One Health approach, and it's a surveillance tool that's supposed to create new methods of disease control. What those methods entail? Well, we're not entirely 100% sure on that one. Which brings us to this next question. Why are governments all over the world, especially the United States, all for giving this one international body, a group that didn't have the best record during the health crisis, or at least the last health crisis? I mean, like, they actually lied to us about what vaccines do and continue to push for this narrative that they're the ones that have to be in control. And okay. I'm going off on a tangent here. So let's just get back to the question. Why are government leaders just so willing to hand over the keys to this group of unelected leaders? Well, maybe because it's being spurred by other unelected leaders as well. You see, back in 2017, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation signed a pact with the FDA, a memorandum to be exact. And I mean, like, who's the biggest supporters of the WHO? That's right, this foundation. And who else does Gates support? If we're talking about ideals and plans, the World Economic Forum. I mean, it's not a stretch at all. These things are all interconnected in some way, and at the very end of it, it's all about controlling the masses.
I'm here with Bill Gates at Davos at an event to unveil a new initiative that you're excited about that's dealing with vaccines. Tell us a little bit about the problem you're trying to solve and the solution that you've got to work towards that solving here.
Well, we always have to worry that a new epidemic's going to come along.
Yeah.
A flu epidemic that could go global, something like the Ebola epidemic, which we were lucky was confined to a few countries, but still caused immense health and economic damage. And people often ask, well, can't we just generate a vaccine very quickly, get it out there? And unfortunately, it takes many years to do a completely new vaccine. The design, the safety reviews,
costs,
the manufacturing, all those things mean that an epidemic can be very widespread before that tool would come along. And so after Ebola, the global health community talked a lot about this, including a new type of vaccine platform called DNA-RNA that should speed things along. And so this Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Initiative, CEPI, is 3 countries, Japan, Norway, Germany, and 2 foundations, Wellcome Trust, who we work with on a lot of things, and our foundation, Gates Foundation, coming together to fund actually trying to use that platform and make some vaccines, and so that would help us in the future.
But again, I want to leave the last word to you guys. I want you guys to decide on things for yourself. I'll give you the numbers, the data, the information, and all that, but at the end of it, I want you guys to have your own voice, your own opinion on the matter. Do you guys think that this kind of accord is going to help us or hinder us in the future? Let me know down below, and before I go, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate the love. Thank you for sharing and liking these videos, and I'll see you guys on the next one.